If it hasn't been obvious, since I'm a massive Sonic the Hedgehog fan and spend most of my time talking about lore related to the Blue Rat, I enjoy a nice bit of slop. As long as the game is playable and has some fun moments, I'm very easy to please. Honkai Star Rail? Hell yeah! The entire Amphora story has been great. Wuthering Waves? A little touchy on the story, but content and gameplay-wise, it's been an absolute banger. Zenless Zone Zero, I've been enjoying on and off, and Genshin Impact, I've fallen off, like, badly, but I still return to it every now and then when there's a major update. So, Persona getting a dedicated gacha is right up my alley. I like Persona. I like a little bit of free-to-play gacha slop. P5X was something I was a little hesitant to start when Global got announced. Did I really need another gacha in my life? Did I need another daily logging grind to level up characters and inevitably get upset when I run out of daily allowance? Well, clearly I fucking did. I mean, look at that playtime. I could have done something actually useful in that amount of time. I could have, like, fed the homeless or fed myself. I don't know. Purse Owner 5, the Fan Cross, is, as the name suggests, a Persona gacha game. But I mean, like, genuinely. When they announced P5X, I was really curious how they do the student and combat split. Persona games have a heavy focus on the daily aspect and have you try to do everything in the calendar system, give or take a little over 200 in-game days. So the way they've adapted that for a live service game that is supposed to run for, I have no idea how long, it's a pretty good compromise. There's no dedicated calendar, and instead, as of patch 1.x, your student life is a loop of waking up, going to school, getting 2 post-school activity slots and 2 afternoon slots with a single night slot to cap it off before the game makes you go to bed and repeat the process. While Mementos, unlike Persona 5, you're free to enter and exit at your leisure with no penalty. But that's where the gacha mobile game stuff comes in. Both Student Life and Phantom Thief stuff is mostly locked behind daily gates that refresh either over time or at a daily reset. You get 5 activity points for your Student Life, and each event takes up 1 to 3 depending on how much you want to spend. Over on the Phantom Thief side, in typical gacha fashion, you're spending your 250 points pretty quickly. Especially in the early days of a gacha where you're trying your best to level up your characters, their stats, and make a few comps for yourself to tackle the quote-unquote endgame to get more rewards, to level up your characters more, to tackle the endgame to level up your characters more, and loop. You get where I'm going with this. I'm pretty fine with the amount of activity points you get in both Phantom Thief and Student Life, but even just playing casually and spending your daily allowances on stuff is a bit of a drag with how long it can take to level up your rank and get to a point where you can actually get the highest rewards. And if you're impatient like me, that can lead to bad financial decisions. Mind you, I will say this issue always becomes less and less the further into the game's lifespan you are, at least for me, so I'll probably change my mind down the road. With games like Genshin and Wuthering Waves, you're locked behind level caps on what the highest thing you can do is. The higher your level cap, the better rewards, and when you're in that gray area between max cap and 2 caps below, you'll see your characters require a lot more raw materials that you just aren't getting because of the rank you're currently stuck at. Eventually, this becomes easier, and getting a character up to speed when you newly pull for them is easy as all hell, and you're really only stuck waiting on your weekly resets. Shout out Carthathea in Wuthering Waves. But as of right now, I'm not at that point, and I figured I should be honest about the annoyances I do have with the game. But hey, moving on. Unlike normal Persona games, they've changed up both how many social stats and social link ranks there are. Instead of the usual rank 1 through 10 for social links and ranks 1 through 5 for social stats, you're now looking at ranks 20 for both, with social links or excuse me, synergy ranks requiring you to level up social stats alongside the social links, which hilariously combined with the 5 daily allowances really replicates the feeling of indecision on what the hell to do during a day like in Persona 3, 4, and 5. I mean, for me, at least, you know? I look at the menu for my daily student life and can't decide if I want to go rank up my stats or hang out with characters, with the voice in the back of my head telling me, "Ooh, dude, if you don't choose X, you're gonna have to wait 24 hours, ooh." So I don't mind that at all that much. It's a little annoying, but it's also like the point of the game. It's just more of a literal wait compared to a regular Persona game. If that is even the right way to phrase it, it's different types of waiting. I was pleasantly surprised to see some mini-games pop up, like the band club having a rhythm game tied to it like the Persona dancing games, which I can appreciate because I have ears connected to a heart and love the Persona 5 soundtrack. Batting cages return from Persona 5, and they also introduced the soccer club, which kind of play the same, you aim for the sweet spot and try to get the best score. Standard stuff. The new tracks introduced for P5X aren't too bad, at least so far. I'm not a huge fan of the vocal track Last Strike that they played during the first Palace boss, if only for its placement as a vocal track in the story at this point. I love Rivers in the Desert, and a huge part of that is because of its significance in the story and where it plays. So getting one that plays kinda willy-nilly for a pretty silly palace ruler, especially compared to Kamoshida in the first game, which this boss is supposed to be related to, it doesn't hit as hard for me, and it doesn't help that I really only enjoy the chorus.
Ready to seal the past, combat your life, driving for burning last. By mighty side, it's onward just to strive, to earn comeback, pick up your junkie pride, and step off stage to say goodbye.
But Lynn continues to be a wonderful singer, so I can't complain too much. The original tracks overall are quite enjoyable. Speaking of slamming subways, the game's initial hook, while not a lot, was enough for me to be invested in the story. Something has happened that caused this reality to be made, and so far, outside of Takemi, Chihaya, and Iwai returning for Persona 5, this seems to be an entirely separate reality of the other Persona games. And honestly, that's enough of a mystery for me. Some decision was made that led to the creation of this reality, or even just a timeline, and I want to see where that goes. Why an apparition of Joker told Wonder to resist it, and why the P5X reality is able to interact with the main Persona reality. There's also some minor changes, like Big Bang Burger having been changed into Boom Bang Burger, the 109 building from Shibuya, which was 705 in Persona 5 Scramble, now being 706. Probably a few things I'm missing, but it's enough to make you go, hey, that's interesting. Most people have already joked about the Subway Slammer, and as I mentioned earlier, comparing a guy who's upset that a girl ruined his baseball career to the guy that sexually assaulted teenage girls and physically abused students is an insane jump. I don't even mind the Subway Slammer, and honestly, I felt that him being a misogynist kinda came out of nowhere. Maybe I'm being a dummy, but outside of attacking women, it seemed more juvenile in nature than targeted based on gender. So the game suddenly going, hey, you're a misogynist, and you're like, oh, that's what this was supposed to be. Ultimately, as a global player, we're behind a good few patches, and I assume that the story will ramp up eventually. And so far, the story is serviceable enough for me to enjoy it. But as I said at the start of the video, I am easily entertained, and I don't need a deep story to enjoy it. This is also a Persona game, and dungeons can range from I am here to usher in the fucking apocalypse to I don't want people to think I'm not masculine, so I hate women because they cost my career, and I really want to make movies are pretty in line with typical early Persona shadows. Now, I am a big fan of the Phantom Idol gimmick. Instead of the game bending over backwards to give you the biggest group of Phantom Thieves and justify it in the story, the Phantom Idol system lets them make a Phantom Thief and Persona user out of anybody while not actually having to be added to the main story. Honestly, it kind of feels like a natural extension of the social link system, letting you use the connections you forged, or in this specific case, may or may not have forged, to have them by your side despite not being combat oriented. And I honestly wouldn't mind if this transfers over to Persona 6 or another mainline game down the line. It's very fun, and allows them to be very creative with new character designs that they don't have to worry about forcing into the story. We can have Nanako with a gun and have it make sense in the story. I'm just saying, that'd be hilarious. Now, this might be a bit of a duh to people, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that each character gets character-specific actions, which is like, yeah, duh. But they could have just as easily gone the lame route and give each unit standard actions like Agi or Bufu, with the thing that sets them apart being their showtime and maybe a single action, which again, yeah, duh, of course they'd give each character their own dedicated actions. But this is a gacha game for a Sega franchise. You can't blame me for expecting a few cut corners. Speaking of, they've made the choice to speed up patch releases to catch up to the Chinese client faster, which is great, but there's a big glaring issue with that. See, the average patch cycle for a gacha game, or at least Hoyoverse games, are about 5 weeks between major patches. In those 5 weeks, you'll have 4 gacha banners split over 5 weeks, so 2 for each half of the patch duration, which is fairly standard. The second half will also usually be reruns, with new characters being at the start of the patch. During these 5 weeks, you'll also have your dailies, events, side quests, main story, Fortnite Battle Pass, and whatever paywall stuff you can use to save and spend on characters you'd like. Whereas here, we've had 4 banners so far in the 4 weeks since release. Joker at the start, 2 5-star characters, and then Fox replacing one of the previous 2 5-star characters. And I can only assume that Queen will replace the non-Fox or Joker banner, which is an insane turnaround rate. We're not getting enough free shit from daily play or even paid play without spending dolphin money to get characters that we may or may not want, not to mention their weapons. This forces you to either miss out on characters you'd like or start wailing to get them. And no, you don't need every character, but the rate at which we're getting characters and the rate at which you collect the currency to get said characters is not a good thing. This doesn't even begin to mention the potential power creep for later in the game where you're still using 4 and maybe a few 5-star units and the game is requiring you to have comms dedicated to, like, I don't know, Yu Narukami when Persona 4 crossovers finally happen, you know? This should smooth out once we reach where the Chinese client is, or whenever they decide to stop speeding up patch releases, or even if they start handing out more freebies to account for all of the missed days of play between patches originally due to the speed up. The game's UI and just general vibe feel like a bit of a patch job. The game runs fine enough, but there's times the UI just won't work as you want it to, taking a bit to load simple menus and stuttering or stopping when you're in mementos. This might also be a personal thing, but I figured I'd mention it. The game causes one of my PC's fans to constantly start and stop. I'll just be playing the game and every few seconds I just hear over and over and over. I ain't even playing. I was AFK. Look at this. And yet, despite these issues, the UI being stitched together, the awful rewards compared to the time between patches, the janky control scheme, and just general annoyances, I do really like P5X. It's not perfect, it's not even the best gacha out there, which, you know, that goes to Wuthering Waves and I'm not taking any other answer. But overall, like Persona 5 Tactica and Persona 5 Scramble, it is a genuine Persona game. And I like those. I'm looking forward to where the game goes, and I hope that the game irons out these issues sooner rather than later. Luckily, I'm not too prone to purchases, so unless something drastic happens, I'll be fine with playing the waiting game and missing out on characters. But I can in good conscience not say this: if you are one to spend your hard-earned money, or maybe even money you don't really have, on mobile gachas and anime girl PNGs, you might not want to play this because it can get very, very hairy for somebody like that. Or don't. You don't have to listen to me. Who the fuck cares? Of course, when they start releasing units with their ultimate personas, and if they're not free, that's when I might be in trouble. That's not gonna happen. Right?